Welcome to NUIC Football Fanatics. We're going to bring you all the insight you want on all the teams, rankings, predictions, weekly matchups, game recaps, and playoff seedings. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Shane.
Now let's get to the team breakdowns. We're going to start in the Upstate Conference, and we're going to start with AFC. Last year, AFC went 4-5, and they were 4-4 in the Upstate Conference. They did lose their crossover game to Forreston. 2016, will the Raiders be able to improve and get to that fifth win this year?
You know, Kyle, I certainly think they have the capability to do so. Looking at their schedule, very similar to last year with their crossover being Forreston again. It's going to be difficult to get that fifth win, but I think with a new group coming up, they certainly can get to 5 wins.
Excellent. Some key players to watch are going to be Stephen Brook at running back and defensive end and Joe Uphoff at tackle and defensive end. These are two seniors that need to be able to carry the team to be successful. Alright, now we're going to get to Aquin. Last year, Aquin went 5-4, and they were 4-4 in the Upstate Conference. They had two key losses in weeks 2 and 3 last year that kept them out of the playoffs. None of those hurt more than their loss to Durant in week 3, a team they should have beat. They missed the playoffs, and because of this, they didn't have enough playoff points to get in. This year, will the Dogs have enough to get in the playoffs? They have low numbers on the team, lack of size. They are a senior-dominated team, and if they do get to 5 wins this year, they should be in with their crossover game with Amboy.
Yeah, and like Kyle said, that Amboy crossover could play out to be huge for Aquin. Looking at their schedule, you know, it's all about taking care of teams that you should. No disrespect to the lower level teams in the conference, but you know, like Kyle said last year, Aquin lost a few games that they probably, looking back at, should have won. You know, Kyle says 5-4 gets them in. You know, we'll see how that plays out, but I definitely think they have the ability to get to 5-4.
Yeah, absolutely. Some players to watch are going to be Caleb Stovall and Tyler Reinhardt. Both their seniors are going to anchor the offensive line, and they're going to need to come up big this year in order for the Dogs to get into the playoffs. All right, now we're on to Durant. Last year, Durant went 3-6, and they were 3-5 in the Upstate Conference. This was coming off of a year where they switched from the Northwest Division to the Upstate Division, and one would have thought that with that switch they would have been a better team, but they just couldn't put it all together. Going into this year, will the Bulldogs even be able to compete? They have low numbers, only 12 varsity players. They're going to have some upperclassmen come up to fill in.
Yeah, and I think that's real crucial for the Bulldogs. You know, you're looking and you just wonder how they get to that 5th win. It's going to be difficult. I know they have a good group of guys with what few numbers they do have, but you know, whether they get to that 5th win or not, it's really going to rely on coming through in some big games, and we'll find out as the year goes on. But you know, it doesn't look great for Durant at this point, but we'll see how it plays out.
Right, absolutely. Keys to success: Durant's going to have to be able to sustain ball control, and they're going to have to limit the big plays. If they do that, they may be able to find themselves on the winning side of some additional games that they're going to need. All right, Milledgeville. Last year, Milledgeville was 4-5, and they went 4-4 in the Upstate Division. They started the year off 4-1, taking the area by surprise before they dropped their last 4 games to end the year at 4-5. Going into this year, they have a lot of returners back. They should improve, but the only question is, will they get to that 5th win as well? 5 wins gets them in, most likely, being that their crossover game is with Dakota.
Yeah, and Dakota's going to, you know, we'll break out Dakota later, but Dakota's going to give them a lot of valuable points if they are able to get to that 5th win. You know, Milledgeville, you're going to have a good game with Aquin and on down. But we'll see if they get to that 5th win. You know, like he said, last year they really stormed out to the gates, and based on the schedule, they should have a very good start again this year. But it's all about winning games that you should,
right,
and playing out good football. So we'll see how it goes for Milledgeville.
And I'm glad that you said that too, Shane, because I listed it here in their keys to success. They need to be able to finish games. They lost 2 games last year that were close, both to AFC and Warren, that would have put them in the playoffs at 6-3 if they turned those 2 games around. Next up are the Broncos of Orangeville. Last year they were 1-8. They went 1-7 in the Upstate Conference. The big thing is they did snap their losing streak with a win over River Ridge in Week 8. Looking forward to this year. I look forward to the Broncos being improved over last year, but will they have an old line that will control the line of scrimmage for them?
You know, and I think that's going to be the key with Orangeville. You know, how the line progresses as the season goes on. You know, they've had a great summer, 7-on-7 tournaments. You know, for me, this is the team to watch. We'll see if Orangeville is able to beat some more teams this year. You know, get right to that cusp of being in the playoffs. You know, you get to the last few weeks, being right on the bubble. You know, the kids will be more motivated. You never know what could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, they were very good in 7-on-7. The only thing is will that translate once they put the pads on? Some players to watch are going to be quarterback Austin Guy and wide receiver Caden Getz. If those two can get in a combination going on, they could put some points up quickly.
Marco
Polo. Speaking of that, let's talk about those Polo Marcos. Last year they were 11-1 and they were 8-0 in the Upstate Conference. They lost in the quarterfinals to eventual state runner-up Stark County, 35-17. Going into this year, they lost a lot of skill players last year, quite a few all-staters that they had, but they will reload for this season as they had a very successful fresh soft campaign last year as well with their team going undefeated down at the lower level. The question, though, is how far will they go with few returning starters?
You know, that remains to be seen, but, you know, Polo's one of those teams that they're always going to be there. They have a good tradition going. You know, they lost a lot, but I still have them very high on the Upstate side. You know, I think, you know, it all goes back to, you know, do you win the games you should, put the teams away you should. You know, you get in tough games with Stockton, Warren, Aquin. You know, it's all about playing good football, and you know, I think Polo will still be very successful this year.
Right, absolutely. And I got a couple guys that they should really be key players for the Marcos. Matthew Cheeseman and Reed Taylor both are running backs and outside linebackers. And then you got J.J. Bardell and Brody Cromer both anchoring both the offensive and defensive lines, which brings some size as they both weigh over 230 pounds. If these guys can perform for Polo, they should be in good hands for another season to come yet. Next up is River Ridge. Last year, River Ridge went 0-9 and 0-8 in the Upstate Conference. Looking into this year, the Wildcats have athletes, as River Ridge always does, but they have very low numbers. It almost makes you think that football's near the end.
You know, you kind of wonder, but you really hope not. You know, it wasn't that far long ago, you know, River Ridge was co-opted with Warren, and, you know, Warren got out of that. And we saw what they put together in the last few years. You know, River Ridge is one of those schools, you know, they have the athletes. You got to put it together on the field. You just hope that they're able to build on a game here and there, and, you know, they can turn their season into something special. I mean, you know, that's what we love about doing this. You know, we don't know what's going to happen. We can only guess. But, you know, you just hope River Ridge can put a good season together.
Yeah, absolutely. Some keys to success, I mentioned the low numbers. Coaches need to get some inspiration in the kids to get more players. Since their co-op with Warren ended, River Ridge has a higher enrollment than Warren, but Warren's putting out more players on the field. I believe River Ridge could do the same thing. All right, next up is Stockton Blackhawks. Last year, Stockton was 8-3, and they went 6-2 in the Upstate Conference. They eventually lost to the semifinalists of Ottawa Marquette, 21-14 in the second round. What to look for going into this season? Stockton looks to be the heavy favorites going in this season with a lot of returners. I don't see where they shouldn't be favored in a lot of games that they match up in. What do you think?
Very much so. You know, I would put Stockton very close, if not close, to the top in the Upstate side. You know, you got Hayden Fox out there slinging bullets. I mean, there's really not much this kid can't do to lead the Blackhawks to another phenomenal season. You know, it's all about whether Stockton can bring that third state championship home. You know, a lot of people didn't give him credit last year in the playoffs to go to Galena and win. You know, you get to that moment, you never know what can happen. You get on a roll. Next thing you know, Stockton's winning it all. You never know.
Absolutely. And speaking of Hayden Fox, that's the key player I have for Stockton to be successful. He's a dual threat QB. He's got a cannon arm. He needs to be the leader, and he needs to be able to carry this team. All right. Next, we got up the Warren Warriors. Last year, Warren went 7-4, and they were 6-2 in the Upstate Conference before they eventually lost in the second round to conference rival Polo. Going into this year, Warren graduated most of their linemen. I don't know if the Warriors will be able to put enough together for a third straight postseason run. What do you think?
We'll find out. But I like what Warren is starting to establish there. Winning football. They might only made it to the second round last year, but you're building on that as you go forward. You do have a lot of key players returning. They might lose their line, and they'll figure that out as they go. But you keep those key players for another year. Your line's key, but your key players are gonna be the ones to help get you there.
And I like what you said there about playing winning football and getting to the second round. A lot of coaches will tell you build a program by getting to the second round continuously as you get that 10th and 11th week of practice. That really makes a lot of difference building a program for the future.
Very much so.
Some keys to success for Warren is definitely going to be on their offensive defensive lines. They're going to have to be able to control the line of scrimmage. This brings us to our Upstate predictions for the year. Shane, why don't you tell us what you have as far as your outlook on the Upstate?
The moment we've been waiting for, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, going through our team breakdown, I really like Stockton. I got them at 9-0. I look for them to run the table. Next, I have Warren at 7-2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. With their second loss coming to Galena, only their first loss to Stockton. Next, I'd list Polo also at 7-2. Warren and Stockton as their losses. Aquin, we talked, are they going to get to that fifth win? Will they have the playoff points? I have them going 5-4. Playoff points will work themselves out. They should have enough if they get to that point. Next, we have AFC going 4-5. Raider Nation, relax a little bit. You can control this. My predictions don't mean anything. After AFC, we have Milledgeville, 3-6. We'll see how it works out. Aquin, AFC, those are gonna be tough games.
Oh yeah.
After that, we have Orangeville, 2-7. But like I said, they could easily go 3-6, 4-5, get to that point where they might make the playoffs. We'll see what happens. Next, I have Durant at 1-8. The low numbers. It's just gonna be I feel it's gonna be a tough year for Durant. And lastly, I have River Ridge going 0-9. Unfortunately, we'll hope the Wildcats can get something going to prove me wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. As for myself, I agree with you, Shane. I think Stockton's going 9-0 this year. They have the most returning starters. Hayden Fox at quarterback, along with a lot of returning running backs like Dylan Oppold, are definitely going to take them to that next level. I also see this Stockton team being more physical defensively than they have been in the past couple years, which has really been their Achilles heel.
Right.
As far as their progression in the playoffs and even winning some games that they should have won. Next, I have Polo going 8-1. Their only loss is going to be Stockton. I could see that game honestly going either direction. Being that Stockton has more experience coming back, I feel that they should be able to pull that one off over Polo.
Very possible.
Warren is next. I got them going 6-3, getting into the playoffs. Obviously, I have them losing to Polo and Stockton, even though they did upset Stockton last year. It goes back to me thinking that Stockton has enough to turn everything around this year. And then, of course, their loss to crossover Galena. I just don't see a way with their lack of size on the offensive and defensive lines where they're going to go into Galena and push them around.
Right.
Like you said, I have Aquin next at 5-4. I do see them getting in with that fifth win. I also believe that should be enough to propel them in the playoffs now that they have their crossover game with Amboy, getting rid of South Beloit and their 0 points that they gave them. After that, I have Milledgeville. I think Milledgeville's going to fall right about where they were last year, 4-5. Could they easily make that 5-4, possibly 6-3? Absolutely. They have a lot of returning players back. Close losses to both Warren and Aquin last year. I think they can really turn that around. I just don't know if it's going to happen this year. After that, I have AFC going 3-6. The Raiders are going to be a decent team. I see some upcoming players that are juniors this year that should be able to guide the ship, but it's going to be that lack of experience, I believe, at the varsity level that is going to cost them a couple games when they need it the most. Broncos, Orangeville. I got them going 2-7. Once again, they went from 0-9 2 seasons ago, 1-8 last year. I got them improving again this year at 2-7.
Just keep that train moving.
Yeah, I like where Orangeville's going. They're building. Coach Doyle's doing a great job there of getting kids to buy in. You keep hearing word about these younger classes coming up. They're very athletic. Hopefully that translates to the varsity level. I see it watching them this year, 7-on-7 summer leagues. They have it. They just need that offensive and defensive line to come through. If they can get them kids to sustain blocks and move the line, they can pull off upsets on some of these teams that are above them.
I agree.
Next, I have the Bulldogs from Durant coming in at 1-8. Like you stated, only 12 varsity players, needing to bring up some underclassmen just to fill out the roster, especially if injuries occur. I'm not sure what state Durant's in. Don't know if they're going to be looking forward to a possible co-op sometime down the road. It just doesn't look good over there right now. There again, if they can come out ready to play, they may be able to pull some upsets off. I just don't see it happening.
And you see, you really want Durant to do well. They, for a long time they had a lot of success.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Durant is a football town. They always have been, and the last few years they've just kind of fallen off that train, and they need to get back on in a hurry. Last but not least, I have River Ridge going 0-9, repeating the same performance as last year. The only underlying question here is, again, lack of numbers, lack of size. They have very good athletes. Don't get me wrong. River Ridge has athletes. They just cannot get it put together on the football field, and they need to do something there to get it going.
And the people of Durant might not want to hear this, but, that River Ridge-Durant matchup, that might be the deciding factor who gets a victory and who doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see that, too, because I could easily flip them around and say River Ridge is going 1-8, Durant going 0-9. I agree.